Hello! It's another Roaming Fruits episode. Today, we are going to do some history. We will be focusing on the colonial past of Ghana's capital city, Accra. Before we delve in, we are on a drive to grow our community, so we humbly ask that you subscribe to this channel if you are not yet a subscriber, and also please give this video a like. Thanks! The Gold Coast was a British Crown colony on the Gulf of Guinea in West Africa from 1821, until its independence in 1957 as Ghana. And way before the British arrived at this particular seashore of Accra into Ghana, then Gold Coast, there were other colonizers like the Portuguese. The Portuguese were the first European explorers to arrive at the coast in 1471. They encountered a variety of African kingdoms, some of which controlled substantial deposits of gold in the soil. In 1483, the Portuguese came to the continent for increased trade. They built the castle of Elmina in western Ghana of today. This was the first European settlement on the Gold Coast. From here they acquired slaves and gold in trade for European goods, such as metal knives, beads, mirrors, rum, and guns. The news of their successful trading spread quickly, and British, Dutch, Danish, Prussian and Swedish traders arrived as well. The European traders built several forts along the coastline. The Gold Coast had long been a name for the region used by Europeans because of the large gold resources found in the area. The slave trade was the principal exchange and major part of the economy for many years. In this period, European nations began to explore and colonize the Americas. Soon the Portuguese and Spanish began to export African slaves to the Caribbean, and North and South America. The Dutch and British also entered the slave trade, at first supplying slaves to markets in the Caribbean and on the Caribbean coast of South America. The Royal Trading Company was established by the Crown in 1752 to lead its trading in Africa. It was replaced by the African Company of Merchants, which led the British trading efforts into the early 19th century. In 1821, the British government withdrew their charter and seized privately held lands along the coast. In 1821, the government formed the British Gold Coast Colony, after having taken over the remaining interests of other European countries. They purchased and incorporated the Danish Gold Coast in 1850 and the Dutch Gold Coast, including Fort Elmina, in 1872. Britain steadily expanded its colony through the invasion and subjection of local kingdoms as well, particularly the Ashanti and Fanti confederacies. This is a general overview of how colonialism and slavery started in the West African nation of Ghana. Today, however, we are particularly looking at the city of Accra's history with colonialism. We went to the part of Accra where the colonialists first landed in 1471. This place is known today as Accra Central or Garmami in local parlance. The streets of Accra Central in today's modern Ghana is known for many yearly celebrations. One of such celebrations is the Chile Werte Festival, which is a week-long celebration of artistes and creatives. The people of Accra Central are also known to be sporty with a lot of boxing and football talents. There are a number of boxing gyms and clubs, as well as a number of mini-football arenas where young people engage in the sports. Accra is the political and economic capital of modern Ghana, the former Gold Coast. Between the 1500 and 1578, a fortress operated by the Portuguese stood at the site of modern Accra. This fort provided the Europeans with an outlet for trade, particularly in slaves. The Gar people are the original settlers of this place. While the Gar destroyed this fort in 1578, by the mid-17th century, a group of Gar, known as the Accra, had settled on the site. In 1642, the Dutch expelled the Portuguese from the Gold Coast and established a new trading post at Accra. In the early 1660s, the Company of Royal Adventurers of England trading to Africa, later the Royal African Company, established a series of posts in the region, sparking a war between the English and the Dutch over the Gold Coast trade monopoly. After the Treaty of Breda in 1672, the victorious English established their own trading post at Accra, which was eventually expanded into a fortress. During the years 1873 through 1874, the British waged a war against the inland Ashanti Empire. British victory in the conflict confirmed their supremacy in the area, and the Gold Coast colony was officially established. In 1877, the colonial capital was moved from the traditional center of British power at Cape Coast to Accra. Throughout the colonial era, Accra maintained its importance as a center for trade. Even after the construction of a deep-water port at Takoradi in 1928, Accra's surf port remained economically important. During the Second World War, Accra became a crucial link in the Allied transportation network between the European and East Asian regions of conflict. To accommodate this transportation, the airport was significantly expanded to meet the needs of the increased air traffic. After the war, Accra became a flashpoint for anti-colonial sentiment when a group of veterans, unhappy with their treatment, marched on the seat of government at Christiansborg Castle. The protesters were fired upon by the police and 3 died. This triggered a wave of riots expressing dissatisfaction with colonial rule and further fostered nationalist sentiment. This ocean in view, the Atlantic Ocean, was the route of transportation for slaves to the Americas. It was this same ocean that the Europeans first used as they arrived on the shores of Ghana. The transatlantic slave trade, a segment of the global slave trade, transported between 10 million and 12 million enslaved Africans across this ocean to the Americas from the 16th to the 19th century. It was the second of 3 stages of the so-called triangular trade, in which arms, textiles, and wine were shipped from Europe to Africa, enslaved people from Africa to the Americas, and sugar and coffee from the Americas to Europe. We are approaching the Black Star Square or Independence Square. The Independence Square is where Ghana's independence from British colonial rule was declared in 1957. It subsequently became the venue for major national events such as the annual Independence Day celebration, as well as the venue for the transfer of political power from one government to another, which happens every 4 years in democratic Ghana. After Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African colony to gain independence in 1957, nationalist leader and first Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah assured the local population that Accra would remain the capital. In 1966, a military and police coup removed Kwame Nkrumah's government from power, ending what is known as the First Republic. Since this first coup, Accra has played stage to a succession of both military regimes and elected governments, until 1992, when a new constitution was approved by which the country has been governed since. This area of Accra, known as Osu, is the place where the initial seat of government from independence in 1957 was situated. It remained so until 2010, when the seat of the Ghanaian government moved to this building in the same city of Accra. Commuters to Accra Central always come across the seat of Ghana's just on the roadside opposite the police barracks close to the 37 military officers' mess. What makes modern Accra such a beautiful city is the mixture of old-standing colonial structures with the quick rise in modern buildings and infrastructure. One of our favorite things about this city is the nightlife and the night feel. The city of Accra is equally as beautiful at night as it is during the day. Thanks for coming along with us through this colonial journey of Accra, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Ciao.